Good evening, everyone, and welcome to 5 o'clock Junction Falls News. I'm Jared Grosslight.
And I'm Chris Rigger. Tonight's developing story comes from our city government finance department where potential fraud may exist. For more on the story, we go to Sue Ning, who's over at City Hall. Sue, what do you have for us?
Thanks, Guy. I'm here at City Hall where Chief Accountant Libby Jones was absent due to an automobile accident. The day following her car accident, Junction 4 account payable clerk Nora Stewart discovered that a suspicious invoice that she did not recall processing the day prior to Libby's absence. The county refused to comment further on the issues as the story continues to develop. Back to you, Chris and Jared.
Thanks, Sue. For further discussion on this fraud accusation, we bring in our expert panel. Joining us today, we have Crystal Smith, former financial director of Junction Falls City Council, Alex Cohen, AICPA board member, and Aaron Brill, retired partner at Deloitte.
Thanks for having us.
You're welcome.
Crystal, can you give the viewers a brief overview of the finance department? Right now, we don't really have that much information.
Yeah, of course. Well, the background is that I, the former director of the finance department at Junction Falls, was recently replaced by Joe Metros. Joe Metros is responsible for overseeing the work of Libby Jones, the chief accountant. Libby Jones manages Scott Smith, the cash department and investment manager, Marcy Weston, the fixed asset manager, Bob Thomas and Nora Stewart, the accounting assistants for accounts payable, Kathy Elgin, the accounting assistant for accounts receivable, and Chuck Sanchez, the accounting assistant for payroll. Our main concern in this case is Libby Jones. Libby refuses to take mandated vacation time, is responsible for too much work, has been with the department for 15 years. Libby's work is not properly supervised. Libby is the first to arrive at work and last to leave, and her husband owns a local hardware store. The Statement of Auditing Standards, also known as SAS 99, organizes risk factors into 3 fundamental conditions necessary to commit fraud: perceived pressure, perceived opportunity, and rationale. In this case, Libby's risk factors are subdivided into 3 fundamental conditions. Libby's husband owns a local hardware store. First, it is possible that her husband's business is not doing well financially, which may impose a perceived pressure on Libby to misappropriate assets and commit fraud. Second, Libby refuses to take vacation time, is the first to arrive at work and last to leave, and has been with the department for 15 years. This gives her ample knowledge and time to commit and conceal her fraud. Lastly, Libby is responsible for too much work, authoritative and recording duties, which also raises an issue relating to perceived opportunity, and her work is not properly supervised by Joe Metros. Taking these factors into consideration, Libby Jones may be able to rationalize her actions of possible misappropriation of assets based on the belief that she is underpaid and Joe Metros, her supervisor, does not properly review her work.
Thank you. Very interesting. Alex, given this information that Crystal just described, what do you see as some red flags in this case?
A few things caught my attention. First off, Watson & Watson, a CPA firm, has been their auditor for the past 13 years. According to the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, auditors should be replaced every 5 years. This is to assure independence between the auditor and client. Another red flag is that Junction Falls does not have any internal auditors within its finance department. SAS 99 states that having an internal audit staff is very important in performing aspects of the oversight function, and it can be extremely helpful to identify indicators that suggest fraud has been committed. Internal auditors also have the opportunity to evaluate fraud risks and controls and recommend action to mitigate risks and improve controls. so not having an internal audit staff definitely raises some concerns. Another red flag is that the department does not have an automated system implemented, but rather uses a manual operating system. Using a manual system makes the audit trail harder to analyze for auditors since the documents are at different locations, and the system allows employees to create fictitious documents, which appears to be the case in this situation. Another thing that comes to mind that is also important for preventing fraud or the misappropriation of assets is having an ethical hotline or code of conduct within the department. According to SAS 99, the foundation of an effective anti-fraud environment is a culture with a strong value system founded on integrity. And this, of course, is reflected in a code of conduct. The code of conduct should establish the core values of the company and should guide employees in making appropriate decisions in the workplace.
Wow, Alex, those flags are bright red.
Right you are, Jared. Aaron, I have a question for you. As a partner at Deloitte, what do you believe are the best audit procedures to detect this kind of fraud or misappropriation of assets?
Well, having been an auditor for 20 years, I've seen many cases like this. You mentioned SAS 99 earlier. According to SAS 99, further audit procedures should identify, assess, and respond to the risk of fraud. A thorough investigation of the incident should be conducted, and the relevant controls should be assessed and improved. One major problem was Libby had too many responsibilities as chief accountant. A simple segregation of duties could have been a preventative measure. Many audit procedures can be done to test any misappropriation of assets. Confirming accounts payable by direct correspondence with vendors. A simple phone call could have verified a questionable invoice and could have done the job. Analytical procedures compute a ratio with purchases divided by accounts payable and accounts payable with total current liabilities. This ratio can be compared with prior years to find trends that warrant investigation. Or a review of companies from which the department does not usually order from. Also, tracing from accounts payable to cash disbursements could find anything indicative of fraud. But overall, the structural environment of the department needs to be renovated.
Thanks, Aaron. You know what? Actually, right now we're running out of time, so quickly, according to our discussion, do you believe that it is probable, reasonably possible, or remote that misappropriation of assets was indeed committed at the Junction Falls Finance Department?
Based on the given facts in this case, I personally believe that it is probable.
Yeah, I agree. I would have to say probable as well.
I would say probable.
For the viewers who have just turned in, we'd like to close our discussion with a little summary. Crystal?
Well, to summarize, today's discussion was centered on Junction Falls Finance Department and the probability that fraud by the misappropriation of assets was committed. Sue was at the scene where we received reports that a suspicious invoice to a possibly fictitious company was discovered by an accounts payable clerk. This occurred on the day following Libby Jones' car accident. Libby Jones is the chief accountant, and this forced her to miss work, something she never does. The panel of professionals, including myself, discussed major risk factors such as improper segregation of duties in the work performed by Libby Jones, which may allow her to commit and conceal fraud. Alex discussed other circumstances raising concerns, such as the department's lack of a code of conduct, which helps set the tone at the top. And without this, employees are more likely to commit fraud. Lastly, Aaron discussed necessary audit procedures, such as confirming accounts payable transactions by direct correspondence with vendors. All topics were discussed in accordance with the principles established by SAS 99, the Statement of Auditing Standards, which addresses the considerations of fraud for financial statement audits.
That concludes our show for tonight. We want to thank the whole panel for discussing this topic with us. Thank you and good night.
We now toss it up to Sports Center. Da-na-na, da-na-na.
Stay first.
Did you just make eye contact?
Good evening, and welcome to the 5 o'clock Junction Falls News. I'm Jared Grosslight.
Sorry. I was doing something with my.
You need to stop doing that.
Go.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Good evening, and welcome everyone.
Wait, hold on. Can you start over?
Okay. Your thing is turned off. I can't read the screen. Please turn your screen back on. Your laptop screen.
Go.
From the beginning?
Yeah.
Oh.
It's recording.
Good evening, and welcome to the 5 o'clock Junction Falls News.
Over the top, right?
Was recently replaced by Jose Machos.
Jose's not a funny word. Keep going.
What do you believe are the best audit procedures to detect this kind of fraud?
Or misappropriation of assets.
Misappropriation. Keep rolling.
Keep rolling, there's no one behind us. We have no choice but to roll right now. Wow, Alex, those flags are bright red.
Yeah.
Wow, Alex, those flags are bright red.